people have such strong reactions to this thing with Chris Rock and with Will Smith, such incredibly strong reactions and big opinions. And and they just don't quite know what to make of it. They don't know, was it a joke? Was it okay to do? Was Will Smith justified in going up and protecting his woman? And so yes, people have started talking about this, and there's, I think, to the point that Will Smith was able to talk about, and I did read his book. It's a really fabulous book, and it's very raw and it's vulnerable. And especially for an African American man to take that risk to be vulnerable, that's huge. For men to take that risk, for women, but I think there are certain circumstances, certain life experiences, certain cultures, ethnicities, racial groups where it's even more complicated. It's not respected necessarily within the community to be vulnerable in a particular way. And I certainly can't speak at all for African American men. This is all, just what I've heard, anecdotal stuff. But um, the the idea that Will Smith was able to have this moment where he really kind of came undone. And what was it that happened for him? What got triggered in that moment? And in his book, he does talk about domestic violence as a kid and how he froze at the moment that he saw his father hit his mother. And, it wasn't the first time, probably wasn't the last time. And he blamed himself. And at that time, he didn't really know about people's nervous systems. Lots of people still don't know about people's nervous systems. How is a kid going to know about their own nervous system? So what made sense to me was that in that moment, there was sort of a potential breakthrough of something he couldn't do as a kid. He couldn't go and slap his father. He couldn't protect his mother. So out of context, Will Smith getting up on stage and whacking Chris Rock, a good one, it is pretty wild and feels violent and unacceptable during a night where everybody was talking about peace. But if we think about Will Smith's history and how maybe something happened, and I'm not condoning it, I don't think in any way, I'm not saying, yes, somebody insults you, you can go up and smack him. Not at all. However, I wonder if his nervous system just engaged in that moment and he got out of the nervous system state of freeze and got into fight. And that's what happens when people are in a freeze state, which he might have been. You're at the Oscars, ha ha ha, you're up for Best Actor, your nervous system is already in a fight or flight, you're already kind of on the verge because this is a big night. There's a lot of anxiety of, am I going to win? Am I not going to win? And so he might have gone from that freeze state into a fight state, which ultimately you want to get people out of that freeze state into mobilization, but not like that. And if people don't really get adequate treatment for their trauma, things like that can happen. Childhood trauma, we think if we survived it and it wasn't that big a deal, domestic violence, abuse, sexual abuse, bullying, illnesses. There are lots of things that happen to kids, near drownings, a shooting in their neighborhood, some violence in their neighborhood, a death of a parent. There are things that happen that are real traumas for kids. And we think, well, they survived it. They seem okay. Well, what we're not seeing is what their nervous system is doing and what their brain is doing. And so they'll have some strategies that they'll utilize throughout the course of their life. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to feel. And it's not on purpose. Or their nervous system will get stuck in a state of shutdown because, especially as kids, there's not much that they can do. We're really very powerless as children. Some get into a fight mode, some get into a flight mode, lots get into a freeze mode, which is just a lack of ability to respond in the way that they want to or be connected to their emotions. So what's super important is as people are growing through their lives, if they can get to a point where they can get themselves some therapy, get some help, is to work through those nervous system states. They will be with you and they will show up in your relationships, in your workplace, in school. They're going to show up in your parenting. Or for Will Smith, potentially, I'm armchair quarterbacking here, but when you're sitting at the Oscars and somebody says something about your wife. And so we need to make sure that we commit to working through those nervous system states that are stuck. And oftentimes people don't even realize that's happening. But here are some of the symptoms: lots of agitation or fighting. And it might be arguing. It might be shutting down. It might be chronically walking away, not knowing what to say to people, avoidance. These are some of the ways that it might be showing up in adulthood. And you might think, well, that's just my personality. But it's not necessarily a personality. It can be a nervous system state that can be worked through and changed so that people are freer to make choices and to not be subject to what their body and their mind is doing automatically. And that's really the goal.